Good morning and welcome to all. It's wonderful to see you all here today. Our thoughts go out to those who might still be isolated by trees fallen or by power outages. But I am delighted to see that so many of you made it here today. Welcome, members, friends, visitors, guests. And welcome especially to the Reverend Rob Field, who will be our guest in the pulpit, and he will have a fuller introduction a little bit later in the service. I have already lit a candle this morning, and so have a couple of our other members here. The one thing that I like to light a candle for and thanks to Gypsy, who is lighting for us as I keep track of the joys and sorrows that are mentioned. I like to light a candle for this place being more than just a building where we arrive and share our physical presence, but also a container for our hopes and dreams and griefs and joys. And in this part of the service, we light candles symbolically for our deepest joys and sorrows. If you haven't already taken the opportunity to write your joy or sorrow on a card and to light a candle, we're offering that opportunity now. And while you're thinking, we have here already a candle of appreciation for Catherine Burley, who came in on Saturday to ensure that we would have the ability to stream our service this morning. And welcome to you who are joining us online. That candle was from RK, and I might say that RK also worked on Saturday. Can we light a candle for RK as well? Thank you. This one is a somber candle, and Rab asked that we keep Tara McDonald and her family in our thoughts now and in the immediate future. They're going through some hard times. And is there anyone else who would like to share? Kristen, I saw your hand first. A candle from Kristen for the generosity of this congregation during the pledge drive, which continues as for this day only. Last day, last chance. I saw one hand here, and then I'm coming back to the middle. Jim?
One candle in remembrance for all those who are dealing with the tornadoes in the south, and a candle of gratitude for all the crews and other people who are helping to restore things, including right down the street.
Candle from Jim Hardy for those who are suffering in the aftermath of the tornadoes throughout the South and Midwest this week, and also in gratitude for those crews who have been working to restore power and to rescue people and to clean up. Thank you. And I saw, is it Vicki? Vicki Held.
The hearing loop, and in fact, we have John Haynes from Western North Carolina AV testing it this morning and making sure it is tuned to perfection.
And instead of that, we have lovely new carpet as well. So look down and see the new carpet.
From Vicki Held, gratitude for the hearing loop installed, for the new carpet, and for a representative from the hearing aid company, John, I didn't catch your last name, but for being here to fine-tune your work. Thank you. Yes, is that Chris?
Yes. I would just like to light a candle of joy for my mother's 105-year-old.
Candle of joy for Chris's mother, who's 105. Happy birthday, Chris's mother. Many happy returns. Yes, Reverend Philip.
I am tired and sickened and angry about what happened in Nashville. We've got to remember that. We've got to remember that it's more than words. We've got to remember that it's more than prayer. We've got to put into action something that will stop our babies from being killed.
From Philip, a candle of anger, of righteous anger, because of the shooting in Nashville, and many, many more. Some recognized, some not. And that we must do more than just thoughts and prayers. Did I see another hand? Jane. Jane lights a candle for Susan Burr's birthday, which is today. Is Susan here? Happy birthday, Susan. Well, thank you. Gypsy, we have a couple left. Let's light a candle for any and all joys, sorrows, deep feelings that we would want to share, but that we are not ready to voice at this time. Big pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, we're happy too, Emery. Emery asked for a candle of joy that she has the ability to attend here, that she's here. And we are glad to have you, Emery. Thank you, Gypsy. Let's just take a moment to absorb all that we have just heard and shared. In gratitude for this community. In case you haven't noticed, our services have been getting longer, been inching forward. We recently instituted a congregational greeting, and that's lovely. It takes time. I'm going to get risky and bold here and ask that we experiment with greeting, honoring each other's dignity without rising today. So from your seat, a namaste, a wave, blow a kiss. And I'm going to also try to keep the announcements short, but there is so much. We are bursting with news. Today's the first Sunday in April, and so our we have a new charitable partner this month, the Children's Center. I will mention that again when the baskets go round. Dan Carter of this community, an historian and writer, check the slide. His new book is coming out, Unmasking the Klansman, and there will be an event here at the church Sunday, April the 30th at 4. He will be here to speak about the book, and that is a not to be missed event. Next Sunday is Easter Sunday. We'll have a multi-generational service. And following the service is our Super Sunday. If you want to sign up to bring a soup, there is a place to sign up in the lobby, but do plan to join us after the service to share soup and fellowship. And today, as we've mentioned, is the final day of our pledge drive. Remember, we're not just consumers here. We just don't walk into the church like we walk into Walmart and say, I'll take that sermon, or I want these flowers this morning, or I think I'd like to have this reading. We come in and create this space together. We create this community together by sharing our time, talent, trust, and our treasure. So if you haven't yet contributed to the pledge drive, or if you'd like to up it a little bit, today's your day. And as one more reminder, we have a delightful video from Cadence Renner, I think, coming right up.
Hi, what's your name?
Caden Hargis,
And where are you from?
Fletcher.
Have you ever done any things with UUTC in Brevard?
I did the OWL program and I volunteered at their summer camp for 1 year.
Great. What did you learn at the OWL program?
They taught us about sexual education and really gender identity. Anything to go along with anything sexual.
Did you learn something that you didn't know already? Would you recommend any other teens participating?
Yeah, that'd be a great program for teens to at least go through once in their life.
I was also wondering, what did you do for the summer camp?
We did a Harry Potter camp where we
Did you help the kids in different classes, Harry Potter classes? It's been a couple years. Would you recommend other families participating in the Chalice Camp?
Yeah, the Chalice Camp was loads of fun, and it was great to hang out with the kids.
Well, we really appreciate you doing that. Just one more question. If you can recommend to other families to attend UUTC, what could you say about their programs for teens?
For teens, it's really educational, but they also keep you engaged, so you're not likely to wander off and just not pay attention at all.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you, and we hope to see you again in Brevard.
I'm not sure of the provenance of that, but it was great. Our opening words today are by the Reverend Kathy Ryan Starr. They work with the UUA's Side with Love Action Center, and they are called Welcome to This Place. Welcome to this place of peace. May we find some moments of quiet contemplation. Welcome to this place of celebration. May our hearts soar with gratitude for the gift of life. Welcome to this place of sacred love. May we gently hold all that is broken here. Welcome to this place of inquiry. Here may we be challenged to open our minds and hearts ever wider. Come into this place of community. May we together draw the circle of love and justice ever wider. Welcome to this sacred place. Come, let us worship, celebrate, grieve, and love together. Now please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 1. May nothing evil cross this door.
May nothing evil
And now we move more deeply into our worship service with the lighting of our chalice and with words by the Reverend Amy Carroll Webb. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I've heard Reverend Amy's music. I heard her maybe at Susie, not far from here. We are out of candle in the lighter. Does not diminish our flame. And now let's read Reverend Amy's words together. We light this flame for the art of sacred unknowing, humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time. We come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know, that love is now and forever the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment. And now I call on Kevin.
Good morning. Before we get into our words of wisdom for today, I did want to let everyone know that next week, after the 10 o'clock service for Easter, we're going to, of course, have our Easter egg hunt outside, but we do an Easter egg hunt and food hunt. And what we're asking y'all to do is on your way in, please donate food into the Sharing House basket in the lobby. And we're asking for food that's easy for families to pack into lunch boxes for kids for school. So packs of crackers, raisins, unsweetened applesauce, granola bars. We're leaning for the less sweetened, less artificial things. And these are items that Sharing House is always running low on. And they'll help fill up their shelves so they can help our neighbors to ensure that the kids have food heading to school. And now this morning, the book we're going to be using is one that I like a lot. It's called Mindful Monkey, Happy Panda. And this month, we were working on the theme of resistance, and we're using that theme to think about peace in our breath and how we can use our breath and peacefulness in our mind to create peace in the world. One late afternoon, as Monkey was walking home from a long day at school, Monkey came across Panda sitting serenely in a thicket of bamboo. "You always seem so happy and peaceful," said Monkey. "Yes, you could say that," said Happy Panda with a little smile. "What do you do to be so happy and peaceful?" Panda said, "I work, I walk, I read, I eat, I pray, and I rest." Monkey said, "Well, I work, I walk, I read, I eat, I play, and I rest too, but I am not so happy." "That seems true," said Happy Panda as he looked at Monkey. "So, Monkey, what do you think about when you're doing all these things?" "Well," said the monkey, "when I walk, I also think about doing chores. When I do chores, I think about reading. When I read, I'm thinking about eating. When I eat, I'm thinking about playing. When I play, I also think about resting. And when I rest, I'm thinking about walking." "Ah," said the Happy Panda, "your monkey mind jumps from one thing to another, always to somewhere other than here, to something other than what you're doing right now." "Well, of course it does," said the monkey. "Isn't that what everyone's mind does?" "Well," said Happy Panda, "when I walk, I am just walking. And when I work, I am just working. When I read, I am just reading. And when I eat, I am just eating. And when I play, I'm just playing. And when I rest, I am just resting. True happiness, said Happy Panda gently, comes from bringing all our attention to whatever we are doing right now. There's no need to think about what happened yesterday. Yesterday's gone, over, and done. There's no need to worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow isn't here, but today is all around us. Bring your mind back to this moment, right here, over and over and over again, is called mindfulness. Oh, I get it, said the monkey. Mindful, like our mind is full of the present, full of right now. That's definitely how I want to be. And at that very moment, Monkey started to practice mindfulness. How about you? Hope that's just a little reminder as we move through this stressful world with all of its fears and doubts, that we can be a little more mindful and be aware of what we are and where we are right here and find some peace in it. And now Emery will come up, we'll light our children's chalice, and then we'll sing them out to the class. Thank you.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Race in vain. Hold my hand while I run this race. Please hold my hand while I run this race. Please hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Race in vain. Stand by me while I run this race. Help me. Stand by me while I run this race. Please stand by me while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Race in vain. Search my heart while I run this race. Help me. Search my heart while I run this race. Yes, please. Search my heart while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Race in vain.
Thank you. UUTC Quartet, Kristen Leesman, Sharon Gablow, Glenn Cockrum, and Jim Hardy. And John Austin. Yay. UUTC's mission is to support individual spiritual journeys and to promote social, economic, and environmental justice. And our music supports our mission, our building supports our mission, we support our mission. We support our mission every time we take an offering. And no matter whether it takes the form of a check in the basket or a click on the mouse at home. Just a reminder, our charitable giving partner this month is the Children's Center, and there will be envelopes designated for the Children's Center in the basket, and all other contributions in the basket will simply go toward the operations of the church community itself. And now I'm delighted to introduce our speaker for this morning. The Reverend Rob Field is the founding director of the Center for Spiritual Wisdom here in Brevard. It's an independent, interfaith, and interspiritual nonprofit organization serving Western North Carolina since 2016. And in case you aren't familiar with the Center for Spiritual Wisdom's work, here is a sample of their upcoming events. There's a free online forum on the topic, Comedy as Prophecy, Laughing and Learning in the Culture Wars. That's April 13th at 7. There's a free online information session on April 10th at 7 about the center's fall pilgrimage to the Aegean coast. Travelers will walk in the footsteps of St. Paul the Mystic during this 10-day pilgrimage that starts September 29th. A 5-week introduction to the Enneagram for spiritual growth starting May 8th, and much more. Find a full calendar at centersw.org and more information. We've heard from Rob before. He's no stranger to these parts. Last year, I think it was, he pondered with us whether COVID-19 could be a wisdom teacher for us. You might have to refresh our memory.
Mine too.
on whether it's a wisdom teacher. I remember you being here. He served as rector of St. Philip's Episcopal Church in Brevard for 19 years and is a member there today. Rob earned a bachelor's degree from Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire, and his master's and doctoral degrees from the University of the South in Swanee, Tennessee. Rob taught world religions at Brevard College from 2018 to 2022. He and his wife Jane and their 2 dogs have lived in Brevard since 1997. And Reverend Rob selected a reading to flow into his service today, which I'm going to read for you. And it's a little long, but it is pertinent. Drawing on the work of Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a renowned paleontologist and Jesuit priest, Nancy Sylvester writes about trusting in the slow work of God that unfolds through biological and spiritual evolution, even in the midst of widespread turmoil. Nancy Sylvester is the director of the Institute for Communal Contemplation and Dialogue. So these are her words. So much is happening that points to humanity circling backward with no movement forward. We see it in a call to return to nationalism, acceptance of more authoritarian rulers, those in power blaming all that is going wrong on those who are seen as different, the assertion of U.S. dominance and working unilaterally rather than with others. Such a consciousness cannot be dismissed. Yet I also experience another consciousness evolving like a spiral. It emerges from those earlier understandings of who we were and takes a turn upward, outward, and begins to come around again on a wider trajectory. I see it in the greater acceptance of others as we embrace racial, religious, and gender differences, in the growing awareness that we are a planetary community as we address the reality and urgency of the climate crisis, in the deepening belief that we must work in coalition to address the military and economic violence that is tearing us apart between and within nations. The question shifts within me. Why do I believe that evolution itself has a directionality that over time expands, transcends, and includes the best of all that came before? And that our consciousness evolves as well. Maybe I just have to believe this in order to give meaning to life, but I know there is more. It's a matter of faith and hope and love. Again, this is Nancy Sylvester, I was part of the social movements of these last 50 years that brought a new awareness to the beauty of each person and of all creation. I began to understand my Christian faith in a new way that integrated the science and cosmology of our time. We move forward with a greater sense of the whole, a belief in communion, a unity that embraces diversity. And this process takes place slowly in evolutionary time. I have to have faith and hope in who we are becoming. Change is happening. As with evolution, there are times of great creativity and destruction. We have only our one life to offer, to shape how the future emerges. Welcome, Reverend Rob.
Thank you, Vanessa. Well, just looking around, taking in familiar faces, old friends, I presume some new ones. It's good to be here again. So, thank you for the invitation. Something is afoot, and it doesn't feel right. The signs of an historic worldwide change are all around if only we will look for them. Item 1. Ideological polarization of nations, including our own, is deepening. Many countries that once favored democracy are sliding deeper into authoritarian rule. Is anyone besides me, for example, paying very close attention to what's happening in Israel these days? Item 2. Levels of trust in major United States institutions has plummeted. Government, schools, religion, corporations, the media, and banks now earn the lowest levels of public confidence since records started being kept. Our trust as a whole is very slow to be given and very quick to be withdrawn. Item 3. An epidemic of addiction and mental illness is overwhelming the ability of the helping professionals to keep up with it all. The Centers for Disease Control now say 20% of Americans will experience a mental illness this year. 20% of all children in our country will have a debilitating behavioral health crisis during their growing up years. And an astonishing 50% of us all will experience mental illness at some point in our lives. Finally, item 4. More and more philosophers, educators, and sociologists are saying we're now entering a second axial age. Don't be put off if that phrase isn't familiar to you. The first axial age, happening sometime between 600 and 300 before the Common Era, brought us thinkers like Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, the Buddha, some of the major world religions in the world today, and significant new ways to make meaning and understand the world. The second axial age has only just begun, so it's exciting and disturbing in roughly equal measure. In other words, it's unfolding right now, and we don't know what is yet to come. Now, if I considered any one of these items in isolation, I could probably rationalize it away and forget about it if I wanted to. But when I take in the full list of these and other momentous shifts taking place in our lifetimes, then I have no choice but to confess we're in the midst of a transformation of historic proportions. But what does it all mean? What the heck's behind it, if anything? Something is certainly afoot, but it doesn't feel right, at least not most of the time. Is the world falling apart and everyone going crazy? Or might there be something in addition, something deeper, something surprising that's beginning to unfold? These are the questions that are underneath and behind my message today. Many of you know this about me. You knew it even before Vanessa introduced me. I'm not an evangelical Christian. I'm not a conservative Christian, but I am a Christian, a contemplative, very progressive one in the Episcopal tradition. So, that's what you're getting this morning. What I want to do now is sketch for you 4 brief scenes in words and ideas. I'll be trying to illustrate for you what I think is going on in and kind of beneath and between the things of the world right now. And it's going to ask 2 things from the listener if you're willing to take this ride with me. First, it's going to require hanging in there until I begin to connect the dots, which I promise to do after scene number 4. And second, it's going to need a willing suspension of any skepticism you might have until you've heard me out. And even after that, if you totally disagree with me, let's talk at coffee time, okay? 4 brief scenes. Scene number 1. Scene number 1 happens 5 or 6 weeks ago at one of our many wonderful local breweries, and I'm there for a business conversation with a colleague of mine. My colleague, much more extroverted than I. So there we are. We haven't even yet received the golden beverages we have ordered at the bar when he has met and struck up a conversation with a man and a woman who turn out to be husband and wife, who are visiting our fair community. My colleague, remember the extrovert, is engaged in conversation by the time I get my beer, and the husband is listening in, so I start talking to the husband. And I come to find out that the husband is here with his wife in part because they're looking for the right kind of community to live in when all the wheels fall off. He believes that the culture wars will become something worse, a civil war, and he believes there's going to be a breakdown in social order, including food distribution chains and networks. And he's looked into Ecuador, he's looked into some other countries, but I think his wife talked him into checking out some communities in the United States, and they were thinking about Brevard. Well, I took all this in with a straight face. What do I know? I don't know what the future's going to bring. And I said, you know, you could do worse. I mean, Brevard's a wonderful place. A lot of people do gardening. Community gardens are popular here. And there's a nice community spirit. We tend to take care of each other. Now, the man had only had 2 beers, to my knowledge. I just want to clarify. I started paying attention once he started talking. What's going on here? There's starting to be an undeniable sense that things are changing and might change more dramatically, even if we're not all on the same page as to what will unfold and what will happen. There's something shifting. Scene number 2. Scene number 2 took place last fall at the beginning of the fall semester at Brevard College. That's when I was still teaching world religions. 2 or 3 sections of an introduction to world religions class. I loved it, but the center needed my full-time attention. Pardon me. Oh, that's better. The center needed my full-time attention, so I had to give up teaching. But at the beginning of every semester, I would survey the students. I would give them a long list of potential religious and spiritual identifiers and ask them to choose one. It had all the things you would imagine: Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, agnostic, atheist, secular humanist. I had tree-hugging dirt worshiper on the list. Several of them checked that. But I was stunned this past fall because when it came to their primary religious or spiritual identity, 21% of the 80 or so students across the 3 sections of my class chose either undecided or none, N-O-N-E. That's striking to me because the folks at the Pew Research Center say the fastest growing religious group in the United States today are the nones, the N-O-N-Es, who, like a fifth of my students, prefer no label when it comes to their religious or spiritual identity. And the younger a person is, the more likely they are to label themselves none. When given a chance to comment on this, it's always a blank spot I would give them if they wanted to make a comment. One of them wrote this: I was raised as a Christian, baptized in a church, and I used to go to one on Sundays with my family. But as I grew up, I noticed I didn't quite share some of those beliefs. Nowadays, I don't see a problem going to church, but I don't see myself as a Christian either. I do have a personal faith in spirituality, meaning I believe in something, but I don't know exactly how to describe it. More and more people today, especially young people, don't feel the need to slap a label on it or category. They don't want to be pinned down by that. What's going on? I believe the old institutions and categories like Christianity are beginning to fade in significance for many people because they're no longer serving the needs of present and future generations. They just don't allow the free movement of the divine spirit or the human spirit. This is how human consciousness begins to evolve. When enough people refuse to accept the same old, and this is how tipping points are reached and exceeded in consciousness and thinking. It's how change finally comes into being. But meanwhile, while we're in the midst of that kind of change and transformation, it makes a lot of us anxious and nervous about the future. Let's move on. Scene number 3. It is right after the 2016 presidential election, And I, perhaps like many of you, I'm going to hazard a wild guess, I was shocked, I was devastated, I was confused, alienated, dejected, depressed. I don't have enough words. And one of the best things I could think of to do was to consult some of my important spiritual teachers through their writings, teachings, occasionally hearing them at conferences and workshops. And one of my most important spiritual teachers is a writer, teacher, happens to be an Episcopal priest named Cynthia Bourgeault, writes a lot on the spiritual life. So I go to the internet, thank God for the internet in times like this. She had posted a video, a transcript of the video, and here's what she said in part. Remember, right after the 2016 election, days after the results were known, here's what Cynthia Bourgeault wrote. Evolutionary change flows over deep time. Events which, when viewed too close up and too soon after the fact, look like devastating upheavals may actually prove to be relatively minor systemic adjustments. Beneath the surface, ripples and rapids, the river itself is still flowing in its channel. She went on to elaborate. The vision of a single unified humanity burns as strongly today as ever as these tectonic plates of consciousness and culture grind up against each other. We must not let every defeat become a reason for losing our way in fear and despair. And so let us go forward. There is work to be done. Prayer, joy, courage, and strength are deeply needed. I can't tell you how important those words were to my spirit and my soul. What's the upshot of her observation as it pertains to my message today? It's this: even though I don't like it, in fact, I often hate it, this is the way evolutionary progress works in real life. Sometimes it's one step forward, sometimes it's two steps back. Next time, perhaps it will be two forward with one back because of the backlash against the change, and so on and so forth. Finally, scene number 4. Just 3 weeks ago, I was in the midst of one of the spiritual companioning sessions. I do one-on-one work with people. This is a client I've had for many years, and once again, we were touching on a topic that frequently comes up. My client suffers from anxiety. She's being treated for it with professionals who have credentials I don't have, but we talk about the spiritual impact of this, how it affects her soul. And I decided to try to take a different tact as she told me once again how much stress and anxiety she was feeling simply about the state of the world. And I said to her, you know we're living at a great hinge point in history. You're aware of the fact that everyone who studies these things is saying we're in the midst of momentous change, of a scale and a scope that hasn't been seen, not just in lifetimes, but probably in millennia. She said, no, tell me more about that. I sent her some links, she read them. And several days later, she wrote me back to say how incredibly reassuring that was. And she wanted me to know that she, for many days, hadn't felt nearly as anxious or panicked. Okay, I said after the 4th scenario, I would begin connecting the dots. So here's where I wrap up. Something is afoot. It often doesn't feel right. But that doesn't mean it isn't exactly what somehow must take place, following the evolutionary convergence of matter and spirit, if you accept that, which I do. Nancy Sylvester alluded to this in the passage that Vanessa read for us, and she bases her thinking and work on Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a French paleontologist, very renowned in his day, also a very faithful, dedicated Jesuit priest, and also a mystic. Because he lived in the late 19th century and the first half of the 20th century, he was following Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, and as a paleontologist, he began to see the fossil evidence confirming the truth of evolution. And so he fully embraced it and began bringing it together and holding it together with his mystical Christian faith. Guess what happened? The Vatican didn't like that. They silenced him told him he couldn't publish anything until after his death. Okay, so of course I was interested in him. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin convinced me there is a direction to evolution. It all is going someplace. In fact, a good and necessary place. In his words, evolution proceeds towards spirit. Here's what he says. Matter and spirit are not opposed as two separate things, but as two directions of evolution in the world. And here's how he explains it. Every being in the world stands somewhere on the slope that rises up from the shadows towards the light. Picture that we're all on this plane, and in theory, if we want to, we're heading towards the light. In front of us, says Teilhard, lies the effort to master our own nature. Behind us, the abandonment of effort in the moral disintegration of our powers. If we go forward, farther up and towards the light, we meet the good and everything is spirit for us. But if we fall back, it will seem to us that we meet nothing on the road but evil. You catch that? Turning towards the light, moving towards it, is as if the universe unfolds for us. But if we fall back in reactionary fear, despair, and lose our way, it's going to look very different. And finally, an invitation. This is from a different work by Teilhard. Above all, trust in the slow work of God. We're quite naturally impatient in everything to reach the end now without delay. We should like to skip the intermediate stages. We are impatient of being on the way to something new. And yet it is the law of all progress that it is made by passing through stages of instability, and it may take a very long time. Here's the conclusion. Sooner or later, and in spite of our incredulity, the world will take this step, harnessing passion and spirit with the evolutionary change of the planet. Because the greater truth always prevails and the greater good emerges in the end. He believes it. He convinced me. So if you agree with me, my friends, that something is afoot and it doesn't feel right, I encourage you to reconsider whether it might be some inevitable shifts with all their reactionary backlashes and setbacks and disruptions, because something new and better is coming. And for those who are in charge of the domination system and the empires of the world, they're very scary and very threatening to them. There is work to be done, my sisters and brothers. Prayer, joy, courage are deeply needed. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? Thank you.
Please rise in body or spirit, and we will sing together our closing hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Yeah, amen. I love it when you get gospel like that, John. That was great, man. Hear now these words of blessing. Julian of Norwich was a Christian contemplative saint from the 14th century, and these are some of the words given to her in a mystical vision by Jesus the Christ. I did not say you will not be troubled. I did not say you will not have trials. I did not say you will not know sorrow, but I do say you shall not be overcome. I who made all things for love shall keep them without end, and all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be exceedingly well. And can I get an amen? Amen. Yes.